Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wheel Talk. Do we have an episode for you today? Hello, Brittany.
Lots of fun stuff in store. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because James was like, "Babies, which one of you is pregnant?" It's me.
I know I saw that. I was like, neither. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's funny.
you do have more romance in your life than I do. So I thought maybe we'd start with the cuteness that was your Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think it was pretty adorable. So, should we just roll the vid? Like, this is what
Yeah, you
happened on
roll the
Valentine's
vid.
Day. Oh,
Oh,
the
it's not. Oh,
cards.
there
And
it is.
look how similar the cards are. That's so crazy. I'm head over wheels for you, and I love your face. That's so crazy. We made these cards completely separately, and yet they turned out so similar. And even the envelopes. Look, where's my one?
Yeah.
Look, she wrote mi amor, and I wrote my love in the same color envelopes. How crazy is that? Look
Yeah,
at
because
this.
they're different.
Yeah, they're actually different envelopes, but they're still. That is wild. That is so cool.
Very cute.
Aren't we just the cutest? Aren't we just fucking adorable?
It's, I didn't know that Chris was
Oh, happy Valentine's Day, my love.
I didn't know that Chris was artistic like you. Ooh, sorry, I'm like
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know she was artistic.
that was sickening.
Sickeningly cute.
Yeah,
I don't know
sickeningly
about that.
cute.
I think when I first was dating Joe, I was gonna try and find it, but I was like, then I have to try and find the keepsake box, and it was too much of a hassle. But we used to do like really cute stuff. Like I remember I made him like a heart that I did like with like crafting stuff, and I put it in a frame, and I made him a little book about like the person that he is. It was like a little poem, and he used to write like really long heartfelt like cards and stuff, and then we just had kids and started tapering off. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's fun when that stuff is really new and fresh and you keep it up because we didn't really keep it up. But I think we still have like a more subtle romantic thing that is kind of enduring and cute in and of itself. But yeah, it's definitely not the drawing each other cards anymore. Which
well, I
is
understand that you probably have a lot less time with raising kids and stuff, but it's lovely that you. I think you transition into parents, and then like you don't have to. You can't just be sickeningly in love like that all the
Oh,
time.
hang
That was
on.
just
That wasn't supposed to stop. That wasn't supposed to go on there. It just automatically jumped up.
Oh, we have another video to react to.
Yeah,
We could just bounce into that. We don't need to dwell
sure.
on Valentine's Day. Let's go for it.
Sure. This video Fred sent me last week, and he was like, I want you to react or get your reaction to this video. And I said I'll react to it in real time. So we'll just like watch it with everybody, and then I'll give my take on it after, and then Fred can talk about what he thinks.
She's literally a 12-year-old Wonder Woman. Everybody just simply dropped off the wheelchair. I know. They're looking. If they watch while you're doing it, they just think you're dropping it.
So
To do this by
when I was
yourself.
watching
just
this,
so you know.
it took me so long to figure out what was going on. But I guess for those of you who are like that might be listening to like audio only, there's a girl piggybacking her cousin up the stairs. Like there's like 4 stairs to some like guy's house, and she took his wheelchair up, and he's just collecting things or like posting letters or something.
It's collecting something for his church. So we'll finish watching.
And they've done this for like 10 houses. Sai can never lose Ella. He needs her forever. She's by far the best kid I've ever known. Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. where so he carries her up, or she carries him up the stairs and his wheelchair to collect the church things. So my initial thought was, what an amazing cousin that she doesn't even question, like, why don't I just go to the door and, get the attention of the person inside and then say, oh, my cousin is here. He would like to talk to you about something. So I was like, that's cool, because sometimes people, I think, automatically try to do that instead of getting you where you want to be as a person in a wheelchair. And then my second thought was, like, it's a lot of work for knocking on the door. So that was I initially I had that like heartwarming thing that like a lot of people in the comments did. I was like, oh my God, what an amazing cousin. And then my reaction to the mom being like, she's the best kid, he can never lose her. I was a little like, he's not going to have somebody like that all the time. So, you can't just think that this person is going to be his like savior to go do all of this stuff, or even put that on her. Maybe she doesn't have that, feeling of like, oh my God, I can't leave him. But I know that some people do have that when they have somebody that's close to them with a disability that they've grown up with, and then they can feel a sense of like responsibility, and not like, maybe she won't go to a college far away, or maybe she'll go where he goes, or do you know what I mean? And I that was my initial thought about like the sort of comments that the mom was making. But yeah, it was interesting that my first thing was heartwarming, and then it took me a minute to be like, what? Wait, what? Because when they said they were doing it for 10 houses, I was like, why don't they just knock on the door and then somebody will open it? Because so many times I'll have like a solicitor come to my door, they knock and they go back down the stairs. Like they don't even come up to the door really close. They talk from down there. So I think it would be very appropriate for her to just go knock on the door. The person comes out and sees them down the stairs. Anyway, what's your take?
I thought it was stupid. Like I just genuinely thought it was really stupid. I thought it was like it was if you do it performatively for social media to get that like, oh, isn't that lovely? But it's like realistically, practically, it's stupid. It's dumb. Like, you remember the video that you asked me to react to, where that guy was doing towing people, and he was like dragging himself out of his wheelchair. That was a parody. Like this isn't a parody. I was like, what the hell? And then when she was like, oh, Sai will always need his cousin, and I was like, yeah, exactly that. Like, he will always need his cousin if you paint him as a victim, like victim mentality. Like, I'm not saying like, get up the stairs yourself, you lazy bastard. I'm just saying like, find a solution that works for you, so you can live an independent life. Like, it just did not sit well with me. I just thought it's that's
I also think there's something to be said about like using your skills where they, where they're more, not like more important, but if it were a choice and I were doing some volunteer work for my church, I would not volunteer to go door to door if I was in a wheelchair. If I was with somebody like this that was willing to go knock on the door, because I'm, I think that I am confident and I love talking to people, I think that would be a strong suit of mine if I had to choose something. But if I couldn't knock on the door, that wouldn't be my, my choice of volunteer activities. So I thought maybe that was like an odd thing. Yeah, I just thought it was a little weird that she was spending so much energy and taking him up the stairs when they could have done like double, triple the amount of houses in that same amount of time by her just walking up, knocking on the door, and then him talking. Like, it's not reducing his value in any way by her going up the stairs, using her abilities to knock on the door and then come back down. Because for one, there was probably a lot of people that were confused if they were watching out their window and somebody put a wheelchair on their porch. Like, I would be like, what?
Yeah. What's
happening right now? And then the kid gets up there for like 2 seconds to just be like, hey, I'm here to collect, donations for my church. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they carry him back down. So I just think that it was odd that, they carried her up. But initially my thing was, oh my God, what an amazing girl. And there is some value in her seeing his contribution as so important and almost like not even thinking about it as a struggle to take him up the stairs, that is very amazing of her. I thought that was cool,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not crying. My eyes are
Yeah, I
watering.
guess so.
Somebody said in the
Yeah,
comments,
no,
why is Brittany crying?
No, well, it's because it was a sad story.
Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was just really dumb. I was just I looked at it. I was like, that's dumb. That's like, is this a parody? Is this like what are you doing this for? Is it like it just felt like performative, or maybe I don't know. It was either stupid or performative, or both. But I just it just doesn't. I just don't think it sends the right message. Like if you're in a wheelchair and you have paralysis, then you want to be independent, and you don't want to like paint yourself as a victim that needs to be carried up, or you don't want to like you're going to rely on that girl for the rest of your life. Anyway,
I feel
let's
like
move on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like it's the same sort of notion that people, when they post things like I climbed a mountain, like somebody in a wheelchair climbed a mountain, and then in the end it's like all of these able-bodied people like hoisting them up the thing, and I'm like, you did not climb a mountain. Like this is so stupid. I hate that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's the same sort of thing where it's like this performative thing where you put it on. Like there's a girl near us that she like wheeled the Great Wall of China, and she like wheeled like a couple of sections by herself for like the camera, and then she was basically like pushed across in her wheelchair. And I'm like, you were wheeled, you absolutely wheeled physically, on the Great Wall of China, but you didn't wheel, like you didn't do it. And that drives me crazy, because I'm just like, if you're doing it to see the sights or whatever, great, but don't make it that you've like climbed a mountain in your wheelchair when it's able-bodied people busting their ass to get you to the top of it. Like they carried you up a mountain. You didn't climb it. You were carried. So yeah, same sort of thing.
No, I get it.
think.
I get it. There was a guy who, his name's Mark. I had him on the podcast once, and he went up to Mount Snowdon. And I remember thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, he was like freshly injured, so I didn't really want to like shit on it. But I was like, well, you know what? I don't think that would be something that I would enjoy doing, because you're just going to be sat there and just carried up the entire way, and you got no autonomy whatsoever. I mean, you fair enough, you get to like see the view, I guess, and it's like a big thing, and maybe it was a fundraiser. But like the experience of it was just something that I wouldn't be interested in doing whatsoever. I was like, and I asked him about it, I think on the podcast, if I remember rightly, or maybe off the podcast. But he said, yeah, it was a bit shit. Like the sentiment was there, but it's Yeah.
I think for me, like if there was something that I really wanted to see that was only accessible by somebody like carrying me up on one of those like mountain, whatever, trail rider things or whatever they're called, I think that would be the goal, is to see something that you could never see without these, people that are able-bodied that are willing to help you. But I would never, after the event, being like, I hiked up to this amazing viewpoint. You didn't hike, like you were carried. You were basically like carried in a baby carrier up a mountain, which is fun. Exactly. You were just luggage. So it drives me crazy when people say that. But yeah. I don't know. Maybe we're just like judgmental or something, but I think it's stupid. Yeah. When people do that.
Apologies if my connection is bad today. I feel like the connection is bad, but again, I can't use my Starlink dish because it's so intermittent. So this is the best I can do. I'm sorry that this is the best I can do. Last week it worked really well. This week I think it's not working that well, but apologies.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. Like your voice, your picture is always a little bit fuzzy, and it goes intermittently in and out of like clear and fuzzy. But your voice is clear, which is way better. I'd rather have a clear voice and no lapses in your voice. But yeah, what any interesting like advancements or like movements on your house search?
Yeah, I had a little bit of an emotional time earlier because I saw this house that was this apartment that was advertised, and it looked amazing. It looked really, really beautiful. I was like, amazing. It's like, and I could see out the window there was a car. So I was like, it's ground floor. It's ground floor. It's spacious. It's not like the perfect place, but like I could make this work. It was like a great price. I was like, oh yeah, Chris, I tagged Chris in it on Facebook. We messaged the lady, and then I didn't mention that I was in a wheelchair. I just said, is it available to have a look? And then she messaged back saying, oh, we've had loads of interest. Maybe if I'll get back to you next week. But then Chris messaged her saying, oh, we're looking for a place that's accessible. And she said, oh, there's steps outside. And I remember thinking, well, because there's steps outside, that doesn't make it not accessible. That
Yeah.
means I could put a ramp in. But then I just thought of it logistically from someone who's renting out a nice apartment. Why would you choose to rent to someone that's going to have to make adaptations and modifications to your apartment? You just choose the able-bodied couple like that can walk up the stairs, right? And I know it's not discrimination. I know it's not discrimination. It's just common sense. It's like the path of least resistance. Oh, should I rent to the wheelchair guy? He's going to put a ramp in. Like, what does that look like? Is that going to cost me anything? Like, even if he says that, his friends can do it and that'll be fine, or he'll foot the cost, like, is he going to scuff up the place with his hand rims and his dirty wheels? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'll just rent to the other couple who don't need to make any adaptations to the house at all. And that just really made me sad because, like, again, it's not discrimination. It's just common sense. I completely understand. Like, it would be an easy choice to make to not have that ball ache of, having to adapt, especially when there's such a high demand for like accommodation here. So it made me really, it just dashed my hopes because I was like, oh, amazing. Look at this place. Now this place looks amazing. And then just to have the realization, of, it's probably not gonna work out.
I think that's kind of the same mentality though that people, or that we've all had when we were first paralyzed, thinking that nobody was going to want to love us or be our partners, because why would they choose us when they could be with somebody that, they can run to the lake with, or swim in the lake with really well, or climb a mountain with, or do whatever that they might be interested in doing. So I think that that's a little bit of a stretch. I think that if you met somebody in person, like if you went to look at a place, I highly doubt, given your personality and stuff, that they still probably would have some questions about your wheelchair and, accommodations in terms of like the ramp. But I don't think that it would be a deal breaker. I think that having somebody that, is a reliable tenant, that cares for the house, that would keep it clean, and that can pay for it, has good credit history. I think all of those things weigh higher in the minds of a good landlord than any small accommodations initially that you might need in order to access the building. But I do think that there are plenty of people for whom that would be a deal breaker, just because they were like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know. They might think that you don't have financial means and stuff because of their, history with people with disabilities or their assumptions or something. So I don't know that it's necessarily a deal breaker, but I do think that it is an added factor. It's like if you have a dog, it makes it harder to get into a place, because there's a lot of places that like that is a deal breaker. Like, I'm not renting to you if you have a dog or you smoke. So I think it's probably on the level. Yeah.
And 2 cats.
I know. Yeah.
So
you have a couple of ticks.
You got to find someone who's going to get past that and be like, oh yeah, you can build a ramp, on, a place that you're renting from me. And also, bring your dog and 2 cats. Yeah, that would be great. Like, I just feel like that was a bit of a realization that like, oh wow, like this is going to be way harder than I thought. Because also, like I say, the accommodation around here is very highly sought after. So if a place like that becomes available, loads of people are like, yeah, I'll rent it. Like, check me out. Like, I can pay the rent. I've got no dogs, no cats, no ramp, and like, they would be like, yeah, sweet, I'll rent to you.
That's so true. Especially if you live in an area that is very desirable, and that, has a lot of people looking for rentals in a relatively small market. Like, there's not probably a huge vacancy rate in Morzine. Like, it's probably pretty small in terms of how many rental opportunities there are. So I don't know. I think I haven't had to do that in a really long time, but I do know how stressful it was when I was buying my house, because there were so few properties on the market that even fit what I could live in at all. And this was like the best of the worst. So I ended up buying a house that was really small, and doesn't work great for me, but we're just used to it now. And so, yeah, I don't want to go through all that trouble of moving again.
I know. It's also very frustrating because I live in such a lovely place that I really don't want to leave. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it would be amazing if I don't know if I had like a bigger. Well, I don't know. I always think like maybe if I had more money and I had a bigger budget, I could look to buy a place and then make it my own, and it would be amazing. And I would have like a lovely little bungalow or a little ground floor chalet somewhere, and we could have the land where the dogs and cats could run around. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, be realistic, man. Like, that's a pipe dream. You're never gonna have that. Like, you got to look at what's available, and then I don't know. It just
Mhm.
and obviously I live in a small town in the French Alps, so like a lot of the buildings are old, so they're not really wheelchair accessible. I don't know. It just got me down. It just got me down. It's kind of like when I applied for that job and the office was upstairs, and they said, "Oh, well, if you're the right candidate for the job, we'll make it work." And then realistically, they must have thought, "Oh, actually, how are we going to get him up the stairs? Well, we may as well just hire someone else that can walk up the stairs." They
Yeah.
never said that explicitly, but
Yeah.
you know.
It's just, yeah, these things come up a lot when you have a disability, and it's really frustrating. Like on the weekend, Jacob had a fight, and it ended up not being very wheelchair accessible. It was just really small. The bathroom, I couldn't get in at all. And the fight ended up being like 7-hour event or something like that. So I would have had to pee when I was there. So I would have had to figure it out. And Joe was just like, it's just not like, you should just stay home. And it's fine. Like I'm used to being like, okay, you take him to this one, I'll go to a different one. But the fact that you can't go, it's worse than if you were just like choosing not to. Like if you decided that that house wasn't, necessarily the one, but it wasn't because of your disability that you couldn't rent it, or that the landlord wouldn't rent it to you, it wouldn't be like such a sting. But because of it's something you can't control, like it's literally something you have no control over, something you don't want either. Like none of us want to have a disability, yet we have one, and we just have to deal with all of these like shitty things that come up, which is really frustrating. And some of it's easier to get over. Like I had other things to do, a gender reveal party that I went to while Jacob was at his fight, so it wasn't such a big deal because I was busy and had something else to do. But if I had just been sitting at home and feeling sorry for myself that I couldn't go, then it probably would have been worse. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's shitty.
I do feel like that happens a lot though. Like, well, like it's not really wheelchair accessible, so maybe you should just stay at home. I'm like, that sucks. Like, it's one of the
Yeah.
things that, like, when you come to terms with a disability, you're like, oh, okay, now I have to use a wheelchair as a mobility device, and then it's like, oh, also sexual function, bladder, bowel, all that thing. Oh, and then spasms, and then nerve pain. You're like, oh god. And
Yeah.
then some things you just miss out on. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
fucking hell. Just keep twisting the knife, baby.
I know.
Yeah. So it sucks. But,
I know.
Anyway, tell me about
It's-
your gender reveal party.
It was actually for my friend. If anybody follows the show Push that I was on, it was Tash, who was the mom that was a quadriplegic, that had a baby on the show. She had a little boy,
cool.
and it was her gender reveal party for her second pregnancy. So they just bought
I
a
was gonna
house.
say a bit late for the first one.
Yeah, a bit late. So they just bought a house, and they are now expecting another baby. So I went there, and it's gonna be a boy, which is really fun.
Hey,
So
cool.
yeah, it's really interesting having friends now having kids, because I had kids, so long ago. And they feel like I'm like the advice person, but I feel like I'm so far out of the baby years that I'm like, I don't even remember what I did in all of those years. But yeah, it's fun. Tash is always like, she's always worried about what she can and can't do as a mom because she's a quadriplegic. And I always try to reassure her that like those years where her disability matters as a mom are so fleeting, and the kids can't remember them at all. Like how many people can remember, before their third birthday? Not very many people have early memories like that. And I was actually watching a TikTok account called The Wangler Way, and it's a guy who has like not like severe cerebral palsy, but he has cerebral palsy. So he his arms are like really spastic, and his legs are really spastic, and he needs care. But his family does like this does this content creation to show what their life is like, and he's got a wife and 2 kids, and his kids, like, they don't even remember when he couldn't help them do stuff, and he's just a normal dad to them, and now they're like adults, and they do all this fun content about him being a great dad and stuff. So I always try to show her things like that, because I'm like, pretty soon your power wheelchair is going to be like the funnest ride ever. Like, they hop on the back and they get to zoom around the mall and all fun stuff like that. But it's so weird when you have a disability as a parent, because I think it brings up a lot of things that you have to miss out on that normally you wouldn't care about, but you want to be with your kid, right? And it's like so heart-wrenching when you can't do stuff with them or for them. But yeah, it was fun. It was her baby reveal party.
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about a lot, actually. Like, since we've been chatting, you know, like so regularly, that like I want to have kids, or at least one kid. I'd really like to be a parent. I feel like that is like the thing. You know, you read about it, like where like life before kids and life after kids, like people, like priorities change so much that you look back and you're like, oh, I think I was pretty naive before I had kids. You know, like you know, I thought about things too much, like things that didn't matter, and now I have kids. You know, my priorities are quite clear. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want that clarity, you know, like that purpose and meaning of like becoming a parent. And, you know, I think it's really something that I really want to do. But I'm scared, not just because of the disability, just because it's terrifying becoming a parent, you know, like it doesn't, you know, the kids don't come with instruction manuals. So it's very, very terrifying, very scary. But it's something that I'd love to do. But yeah, and then on top of that, you have a disability where you're like, oh yeah, you know, what if they're running towards danger, and you're like, you know, I guess it's kind of like having a dog. You got to train the dog because you can't just run across the field when they're, you know.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, in your experience of being a parent, what has been the like? I mean, obviously there's highlights. And I don't specifically mean to be negative, but like, what are the lowlights of like, are there any standout moments where you've been like, that sucked because specifically of my disability?
Mostly, I think like, sorry, I keep like having to clear my throat. I think the thing that I worry about the most now is like how my bladder and bowel has, right? It's even when they were younger, like how my bladder and bowel has either like affected things that I wanted to do with their class or like as a chaperone for things. So I'm constantly worrying about that. Like I remember one time I was like a parent leader on a field trip, and it was to like a historic village, which is like, you know, all old timey stuff. And it was very spread out. So the bathrooms were few and far between. And I had to kind of like plan everything out to my bathroom breaks, and I was taking like a group of like 10 kids with me, and I didn't want to embarrass Jamie to be like, I have to go to the bathroom again, or we have to stop for a bathroom break. So I was really like cognizant of that stuff. But so that is like a stress of mine that just drives me crazy. Or like now, if I'm like in the car driving on a road trip and it's just my kids and I have to pee, I'll just stop and pee in the car, and they'll like dump my pee on the road or whatever. But if their friends are in the car, I can't just do that stuff, because it's, you know, inappropriate to just pee in front of random kids. That might be a little bit weird. And B, kind of embarrassing for my kids. Jacob has been so cool about it. Like I remember when he had a girlfriend when he was like 14, and she drove up to the town my sister lives in with us, which is like 5.5 hours away, because she was going to her aunt's there. So I was like, oh, I can just drive her. And then I had to pee like in the car a few times. And Jacob was just like, my mom pees through a straw and she can just do it in the car. So we're going to go get a burger in, you know, McDonald's, and she's going to pee in the car. And she was like, what? And I was like, oh my God, that was the worst explanation ever, Jacob. So I kind of explained to her, and she's like, oh, I don't care. And so she was really chill about it. But yeah, and then a couple of times, like Jamie's friends have stayed in hotel rooms with me, and I normally pee in the middle of the night, but I pee on the bed into a container so I don't have to get up. And so I had to like make sure like I was on one bed and pile pillows really high, so that like if I did that in the middle of the night and she woke up, she didn't see. So things like that stress me out, just because I don't ever want to embarrass my kids. Even like we're going on a trip with Jacob's boxing club to Disneyland, and the coach was just texting me all about like hiking up to the Hollywood sign. And I was like, I don't know if it's very accessible. So I'm like, maybe I'll just drop Jamie off and she can go, her and Joe can go with you guys. And he was like, no, we're making this work. And I'm like, okay. Like, so now I'm like worried about if I'm going to wreck this whole hike up to the Hollywood sign with his entire boxing club and how I'm going to pee when we're hiking. Like if I'm just like, I have to pee, guys, I have to go over here in the trees or whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm so stressed about that stuff. So as a mom, I think my personal care is really stressful for me to try and manage around people that don't understand it, that I don't want to maybe explain it to. Because normally I'm really open, but there's only so much you can talk to a kid about without it being inappropriate, unless of course they ask. So that has been a really stressful part of parenting. Me worrying that I can't save my kids if they're choking or something, super stressful, especially when they were little and I was by myself with them. So I have like things that I use. Like there's this, it's like a suction
What do you
thing.
mean choking? Like you wouldn't be able to give them a Heimlich?
Yeah, so I'm like worried about that. Jamie choked once when she was little on ice, and she was like 4, and I like picked her up super fast, bent her over my knee, and kind of did like the Heimlich thing, and she was fine. But now that like Jacob's older, if he started like choking and fell on the ground, there is no way I would get out of my chair or do whatever I could possibly do. So I worry about emergencies in that way. And when they were little, I had to really explain to them that like if there was a fire, their job is to go get somebody, like don't help mommy. Your job is to find somebody who can help mommy. So I had to like really train them that I'm never the person you save ever. You save yourself, find somebody to save me. So yeah, those kinds of conversations.
Does that change now that Jacob's older?
Yeah, he would never leave me. Even if I tried to tell him that a million times, he just wouldn't, because he's that kind of a kid. Jamie, it's still the conversation now that like I'm not her priority ever. If we're swimming, anything, like if I'm like drowning, don't try and save me. Find somebody who can save me. So those kinds of things are stressful. And then just like the emotional kind of torture that happens when your kids go and do something fun that you can't do with them. Me trying to explain how to play basketball or volleyball or do a cartwheel. And I'm like, I just want to show them because I could do it. I could do all that stuff and I was good at it. So that kind of stuff brings up a lot of feelings that, you don't normally think about. And I realized that I hadn't really worked through when I was first paralyzed, because it was easier to watch my friends do stuff. I didn't care so much about participating with them, but when it's your own kid, then it kind of hurts. But yeah, those are like, I think my like top ones.
Rowan says he can relate. I've got 3 kids, youngest now 18, middle son 20, and eldest boy 22, relating to the stories about managing bladder and bowel stuff. Yeah, I can imagine that being really difficult. That's something I hadn't even considered. That's how, I was just more thinking of like the logistical things of missing out, like what you said, like how can you explain to someone how to shoot a basketball or do a cartwheel, or rather than show them. It could be quite discouraging, be like, and also hurtful. I'd love to be able to show you that, but I can't. I used to be able to do that, but I can't. Or like for me, it would be snowboarding, because oh my god, I was so passionate about snowboarding, and I was like an elite level snowboarder. I was really bloody good at it, and I always dreamed that like me and my son or daughter would go snowboarding together. And now obviously I can't do that. Although someone did give me a really lovely piece of advice once, and they said that's why there's snowboard instructors. Like snowboard instructors teach people to snowboard all the time. Like as a parent, your job is to teach them manners, kindness, like be a loving parent. You can still do all that from a wheelchair. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds really obvious now you say it out loud. But like I just thought, but I'll never be able to teach my son or daughter to snowboard, which is still hurtful. I still, like you could look at them and you could critique it all you want, because I used to actually be a snowboard instructor as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think as painful as these lessons could be, I still want to experience them. I feel like a life without children is just a little bit duller, I don't think I would regret taking the step and doing it. I just got to convince Chris to do it. You know, she's still on the
Yeah.
fence.
I think there's plenty of people that say they don't want kids, and I think there are plenty of people who shouldn't have kids. But I think if you are, a well-adjusted adult, anybody who says that they don't want kids just doesn't have them. They don't
Yeah.
have that, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted kids. Obviously, I got pregnant in the middle of university, unplanned, so I couldn't think about it too much. And now that I have kids, I would never not want kids. And my cousin, who was adamant that she did not want kids at all, then she suddenly decided, okay, we're going to try and have kids. And now I couldn't even imagine her not being a mom. Like I couldn't imagine her being a mom, because I was like, I don't know what she's going to be like as a mom. I just can't imagine. And now I can't imagine her not being a mom. Same as my brother. Like I couldn't imagine him, what kind of father he would be, but he's such a great father. So I think everybody that's kind of scared to have kids just doesn't have them yet. And once they realize that it's like the most love that you could ever have for somebody, which is also stressful because I seriously worry about my kids so friggin' much. It's so crazy. Like I worry about them so much. So that is very stressful. But yeah, I think it's amazing. And we get to we seriously hang out with our kids. Like we'll have game nights and laugh and do fun things. And Joe and Jacob will play video games together. And me and Jamie will have we watch our shows. I'm like watching all these teenage girl shows, and I love them because I love, rom-coms and things like that. So we're watching them and I'm like, I love this character. And then I'm like talking to other girls in junior high and I'm like, do you watch this show? And I'm like their teacher and they're like, it's the best. And we're sharing this random stuff just because I started watching all these shows with Jamie. So that's really fun that we have one of each and we kind of have a built-in best friend.
No, that sounds really sweet. That sounds really lovely. Yeah, that's nice.
You'd be a good dad.
That's nice.
I know you'd be a good dad.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
You're an adventurous person. You like art, that kind of stuff. When you can sit and do that kind of stuff with kids, they love it. Like just sitting and finger painting or building clay things or Play-Doh and you would be all about that. Like you would be like, let's sit down for 2 hours and make some pancakes out of Play-Doh. And you'd love that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I just wanted to address one of the comments in the chat. We are streaming on 2 different platforms simultaneously. We're streaming on my channel and Brittany's channel. That's why I didn't actually consider that. But yeah, you won't be able to see all the comments. I've only come to mind now. But yeah, if you can't see the comments that we bring up, they're probably on a different channel that you're watching.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of annoying about the comments is they don't populate under the video after it's posted. So there's these live comments, but you can't see them after the video. Once the video is posted on YouTube, these don't show up, which is so weird. This is a live chat kind of thing, but none of these comments show up because Joe was like, nobody comments on your videos. I'm like, we get so many comments. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he said, when we started putting the video or the showing them on the screen, he's like, yeah, I can't see that anywhere. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't populate in the comment section after, which I think is sad. I don't know if there's a setting that I'm missing or something. So I'm going to try and figure that out.
YouTube does have live chat replay. I think it's an option that you can put on when you watch a live video that you can see the comments, but you have to select it somehow. I don't really know. YouTube's confusing. I kind of don't want to really go down this again, but I'm again having the love-hate relationship with YouTube again after my last video. Just I don't know what it is. I think we were talking about content creation last week.
I thought that was such a good video.
Me too. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But the YouTube analytics, the soul-crushing analytics, they say, hey, look, not as good as your last 2 videos, 3, 4 videos. And it's well, yeah, I put my heart and soul into that. I edited it for hours, and then it's look at how many people didn't watch it, and I'm like, oh, stop it! I hate those YouTube analytics. They're so discouraging. Stop it! I don't want to compete against myself. I just want to put out the content that I feel that I'm proud of. But yeah, I'm reluctant to talk about that again because we spoke about it so much last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's soul crushing, really.
It is a hard one. I think obviously I get why YouTube does that so that you can sort of compare your videos, see what's working, build more content or create more content around the things that are working. But I'm also that way. I just am I don't want to create what works. Cause when I look at what works, especially financially in terms of like what gets paid the most, I went and looked at my CPM or my RPM, which is what I get paid for every 1,000 views for the ads. The ones that were the best were like my van review, the one on the products I use for like UTIs. But I'm like, I am not, those aren't my favorite things. Like educational content is my favorite things. And educational content is like lower. So yeah, I don't want to do that because I'm like, I think people like my educational content, the how-to videos. And I'm going to continue doing those and not just try and like play to the ones that either make more money or get more views. Because if I did the things that got more views, all of my top videos are the orgasm video, how I pee video, how I poop video. And I'm just like, I think I've talked about it a lot. I'm not sure that I can talk about it more. So although I do have a video, like a SX Q&A video coming out because I had a girl that emailed me. I think I talked about this before. She asked so many questions about sex and I just like went through her emails and compiled all the questions that she asked. And I'm going to answer them in a video, which a lot of the questions I've never even thought about. I'm just like, what? That's a interesting question. So yeah, it should be a good video, but yeah, content creation is an interesting thing. And I think we're always going to have a love-hate relationship with it. But yeah, just focus on like the joy of it. Because your videos are great when you're focusing on the narrative, especially on the narrative.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I get, well, all right, we'll talk about it. I got some constructive feedback from my friend Benji. And like what he said, that like I know that there's an element of truth in it, but it hurt quite a lot. And and it made me, it discouraged me a little bit. I don't need any discouragement. If anything, I need encouragement. And the way to encourage me is to like leave lovely, warm comments. But it's like the negativity bias, you get 9 lovely comments and then one guy says you're a knob and then you're like, oh my God, why does that guy not like me? When all the other people are like, oh, you're amazing. But basically he said that my content has got a bit too curated, and he was like, yeah, I can kind of like feel like the chat GPT narrative, like pushing you in a different direction. He's like, I love your videos, but I know you as a friend. And he's like, I just prefer the stuff, when you're being a bit more real. And I was like, oh, God damn it. I was like, oh, that really hurts, because I was really proud of the videos and and ChatGPT helps me polish it. But when it's too polished, he said it just felt a bit, he just prefers my other type of videos. And I was like, oh, that really, it was an honest, I like honest, constructive feedback, but it hurt a little bit. And it just, maybe I took it a bit too personally, but I just like, oh, fuck, I didn't want to hear that, man. I wanted you to just be like, 10 out of 10, amazing. I loved it, But yeah, I think, but then also it's good because I think, the more that like you put like some cinematic music over the B-roll, and then, the narrative is helped by ChatGPT, you are kind of losing yourself a little bit in it. And it stung because I think I knew it was a little bit true, I'm like, maybe. So
I think there's an element of truth in there. There always is when people give us constructive feedback, especially if it's a friend that's known you for a really long time. I think part of the allure of your channel for me when I first started watching it was the genuine authenticity and rawness that you were able to show, and just like setting up a camera and talking to it about how you're feeling like in the moment, without necessarily there being a narrative. But I also think that there is a place for narrative sort of content that has a point, it tells a story, and there's like an arc that you're trying to achieve, right? So I do think that there is a place for it. And I think that you trying out this type of content is probably good, because then you see what your audience likes. I think in the sense of like an overview of what your channel maybe is about, or life with a disability, those kinds of videos are great. And there's going to be people that watch them that have disabilities or that know somebody with a disability, and they're going to be like, oh my God, this was such an inspirational video. And those are the ones that get shared. The narrative, like amazing ones get shared. The ones that help the people with disabilities most are the raw, authentic, this is what I'm feeling like right now. This is how I'm, processing this emotion or whatever. I think those ones are the ones that help the people with disabilities most, but I think there's a place for both. So yeah, don't feel too discouraged. I think there's a place for both. And I think if you make great content that's narrative in nature, that has a little bit of a story, and you tell it in the way that you've told the last couple, then it's great. But I also think don't stop doing the other stuff.
Yeah, that's good feedback. And also, it's a hell of a lot less effort just like having a video where I'm just talking about what I'm going through, you know?
Yeah.
It's so weird because when you have like a much more curated video, you're like, oh, this one's just lazy, you know? But then some of my most popular videos are just me talking to the camera, you know? Like
Yeah.
my most popular video, which is still flying, by the way, is the one from 2021 where I'm like talking about my accident, where it's just me and just be like, yeah, this is how I fell off a cliff and broke my back.
Yeah.
It's got like nearly 100,000 views now. It's mad. They're still getting crazy comments on it. For some reason, the algorithms pick that up. I don't know. It's just discouraging a little bit when you put so much effort into a video and then it gets like 500 views, and then you put like no effort into a video and it gets like 100,000 views, and you're like, oh, well, I wanted the other one to go viral. Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. And you can't predict it. Like you really can't.
Yeah.
Now the video about like how the day I learned how paralyzed people poop, I did that video like 4 years ago and nobody watched it. And now it's like in the top 5 of my videos. You can't ever predict when the algorithm is going to pick something up, why
Yeah.
it's going to pick it up. It's so crazy. Like you just don't ever know. And at first I was like, this is so dumb. Like nobody cares about like these funny, real parts of paralysis. And then all of a sudden the algorithm picked up my pee and poop things and it's gone. But now I'm like, I'm pigeonholed into I'm the girl who talks about pee and poop, which is like, it's fine because I am, I guess. But yeah, my other videos, there's so much other things that are interesting about life with a disability too, rather than how we pee and poop. But I do think that information is valuable because I think that's partly some of the biggest stresses of living with a disability. And if I can educate people about how that works, then whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Content creation's a
Anyway.
crapshoot.
Yeah,
What
no,
else
you're
were we
right.
gonna
It
talk
is. I was also talking to Brian about it. Brian released his first video in like 2.5 years, which was really nice. And then he was talking to me about like having to get a new computer to edit software because, you know, his like if you're editing on an old machine, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's a ball ache, right? So he bought a new computer just to edit videos on, and I'm like, that's so interesting. Like, not only is it it's rewarding when you get nice comments, but you have to like fork out, like Brian has had to fork out money for a computer to edit videos. Just, you know, and we like YouTube doesn't pay us like at all. Like
know.
I get I mean, I know that you get like a little bit more, but like the only money that I get from YouTube is literally from that one video that's just picked up by the algorithm. That's paying me like 90% of the AdSense, and then there's the generous people over on Patreon that support the channel, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so weird that we put in still this effort of like hours and hours, and you know we just and then yeah, it's just it feels like a thankless task sometimes, but it's not because
Yeah.
the comments really do. I mean, I feel like you're the same way when you get like lovely comments. Like I screenshot them, I love them, and it's just really nice. So the comments really warm me.
I
So
know.
that's nice.
Me too. The comments are the best. Like money is never my like. Obviously, money makes the world go round. So I'm trying harder to monetize effectively the audience that I've already built up. But the comments are the things that keep me going because if nobody ever commented or said, this really helped me, or this really inspired me, or this really educated me about my friend in a wheelchair, then I would never have any reason to keep going because you can only do stuff for money for so long. If you don't get any recognition whatsoever, then you kind of loses its appeal because I think at the end of the day, we're just looking for acceptance and belonging. And partly YouTube gives me that. But it's also done a lot more for my confidence and stuff than I can probably ever even really measure. The amount of anxiety that I used to get just speaking in public or sharing my story or anything like that was ridiculous. And now I still get nervous and I have sort of embraced that I'm not super articulate, but it's also part of why people like me and it's part of who I am. Speaking of articulate, I wanted to talk about Jordan Peterson, and I'm totally segueing away from this because my mind went there with the articulate thing. He was not that great of a speaker.
Oh, really?
I thought he was going to be amazing.
Let's give it some background first. You went to see Jordan Peterson. Was it this week?
It was on last week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah. So I went last week on Tuesday. For anybody who doesn't know Jordan Peterson is, he's a Canadian psychologist who taught at the University of taught at Harvard, and then he taught at the University of Toronto for years. And then he said some stuff about not agreeing to use people's pronouns in his private practice. If somebody said, I identify as a man or whatever, he said that he wouldn't use that. So then he kind of got disgraced for that. Then he really bucked the system in COVID. Then he lost his license to practice. And he basically quit his job at the university because he was harming students' reputations essentially as a graduate advisor. But now he's like super famous. Like he's a huge voice sort of in the anti-woke culture. And he talks a lot about really amazing psychology concepts too. So it's not just like anti-woke culture stuff. But he wrote a book called We Who Wrestle with God, talking about like what biblical stories can teach us about the world today and stuff. And that's what the actual event was on that I went to. And I'm not particularly religious, but I'm always interested in just any types of conversations like that, spirituality, learning more about the Bible and things like that from other people's perspectives. Because I don't particularly think that it's, the word of God, but I like to hear what other people think about it. So I went to that. And it was definitely a university lecture. He was definitely a lecturer. And then I found out at the thing that he literally grew up 20 minutes from where I grew up, which I had no idea. He's from Fairview, Alberta, which is 20 minutes from Grimshaw, where I grew up. And he lived there like until he graduated, then went to the university, the same university that I went to. And so it was just really cool that you see somebody that has gone so far in their career that literally lived where you lived, went to the university you went to, are the same, like just a regular person. And his family still lives all up there and stuff. And his brother was on the show or on the stage. And he was like, not a very articulate speaker either, but they were just regular people, which was very cool to see. So the talk was not super engaging because it was very university-like. He uses a lot of big words. So he would stop and pause. And I think he said, probably more words than were necessary. The gist of the conversation was so simple, and he probably could have said it in 15 minutes, but he spoke for 75. And I think it's like traditional academia where it's like, how many big words can you stick in a sentence to sound smart? That's kind of what his style is like, and his flair for language is like. So, that's him. But yeah, so that was good. The talk was good, a little boring, and it sort of inspired me because I was like, if he can be on a stage, why couldn't I? So when you see people that are doing all of these amazing things and they're not really, so much higher than what you think you are, then it kind of it breaks the 5-minute mile or the 4-minute mile or whatever. It allows you to believe that it's possible for you too. So that was really inspiring for me. And then his question and answer period was amazing. Obviously, he has some very important political things to say about Canada. And the crowd generally that went to speak him agreed with him. So they were cheering and very animated for that part. But it was pretty fun. But yeah, he wasn't great as a speaker. Yeah.
So what inspired you to want to see him, and especially given the subject matter, and what did you take away from it?
Originally, the reason I wanted to go was because Jacob was sort of like not struggling, but like sort of learning about religion and spirituality and kind of figuring out his place in the world in terms of like his own belief system around God and whether there is a God and all that stuff, because he has a lot of friends that are Christian that go to youth group and they have like Bible verses tattooed on their arms. So he started learning a lot about their religious beliefs, just being friends with them. And so for a while, he was like trying to read the Bible and like learning about Jesus and like all of these things that his friends were talking about so that he had his own understanding of it. And so I bought tickets for him to come with me because I was like, oh, maybe, this talk will give you a better understanding of the Bible, because it was basically a Bible story and the lessons in it. So that's what inspired me to go.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've never really spoken about religion before, but are you religious?
I am not religious. I'm spiritual. I tend to think, and this is just my personal opinion, that religion gets people in trouble. And I do have a relationship with a higher power. I don't call it God necessarily. I call it the universe. I think there's a higher consciousness that you can tap into that has intentionality. So I think that mostly it's driven by the state of your own energy. So if you put out positive energy, you attract positive energy. So I kind of believe that. And I tend to believe more like the Eastern Buddhist type beliefs where there's like reincarnation, your soul learns things, and you just like ascend into a higher level of consciousness within each sort of experience here on earth. So that's kind of what I believe. But as far as religion goes, was raised Catholic. I've done or pretty much all of like the Catholic, oh my God, what are they called? Like First Communion. What are those things called? Somebody put it in the comments.
I have no
like
idea. I don't really know that much.
Yeah,
about
there's like
religion.
all these things that you do, like reconciliation, communion,
Confession.
yeah, like there's all these things that you do. I can't remember what they're called. Marriage is one of them. They're like things that you do sort of in the religion. Baptism is one, to sort of be a faithful Catholic people. So I did a lot of that. I went to Catholic school. I don't remember a lick of anything about the Catholic religion. I loved the Catholic school that I went to. My favorite part was like singing. We did like an assembly where my principal would play the guitar and we would learn what were, religious songs, but they were fun. And I can still sing them all word for word today, like from my elementary school. So I loved Catholic school in that way because I never really knew that we were learning about religion. We were just singing about God and having fun. But as I got older, I started to like question things. Like I'm just like, wait, what? And it's not necessarily like they don't want questions, but you can't raise your hand in church. When they're like talking about something, you're just like, wait, what? Like, can I ask a question about that? They just want you to listen and hopefully believe it. And people try and interpret the Bible and what it means. And I'm just like, if there is a God out there, I am not smart enough to understand whatever created the universe. So I'm just going to let that, I'm going to leave that to whoever created the universe or whatever created the universe. And I'm not going to try and understand it. I'm just going to, feel the things that I feel, which is like intentional energy here and there that pulls me in a either positive direction or negative direction. And I think there's lots you can do, like the meditation, where you learn to control your thoughts and focus your energy into more positive things. So I do those kinds of things, but I don't try to understand religion. I don't try to understand God or the universe or whatever. And I especially hate it when people try and tell me what I have to believe. That this is what the Bible says, and this is what this means, and this is what you have to believe about it. Then I'm automatically like, yeah, you can keep that. I'll do my own thing. So I stopped going to church once I started being like, I'm smarter than this. I don't need somebody to tell me what to believe. So, and that's not I'm not knocking anybody that goes to church.
So what did Jordan Peterson have to say?
Jordan Peterson is very religious. So he believes that the Bible is a very good sort of rendition of timely things that teach us how to behave and that give us hope for the future. So the story that he was talking about was the story of Abraham, which is basically like the father of like all the people that are going to ascend into heaven eventually, like in the Bible and the Old Testament. And he was talking about how he lived a very comfortable life. Abraham was like 70 years old, still lived at home with his parents, because in the Bible, apparently in the Old Testament, people live a very long life. And a life of comfort was not what God or the universe ever wanted for anybody here on earth. The adventure and the satisfaction is in the suffering and all of the things that you go through in life. And so he was talking about the rewards that were basically promised if Abraham left his family and his tent and led people to the promised land. And it was that he would be promised that he was a blessing to himself. So you would learn to love yourself, have self-confidence and all that stuff, that you would get recognition from others, or that he would get recognition from others, that he would bring abundance to other people. So those are like the three sort of promises that God made him, that like, if you leave, I know this is a life of comfort and security, but it's not the life that's bringing you any satisfaction. And if you leave, I promise that you're going to be a blessing to yourself. You'll get recognition from others, and you're going to show people how abundant they can be if they take adventures. And so he just said, like, yeah, adventures are the thing of life. There is no destination that's going to get you to happiness. It's actually the adventure that builds self-confidence and makes you who you are, which I think is a very good lesson. So I thought that was good. And then he also talked about, which tied into all of these like promises that God made to Abraham, that that if you tell your truth and you live by your conscience, regardless of what might happen, because he said that's a beautiful adventure. If you tell the truth and something happens as a result, like Jordan Peterson told the truth and he lost his career and was disgraced as a psychologist, and his brother just said, like, it's been a beautiful adventure to see where this has taken you to heights that you could never have imagined had you just towed the line and did what they wanted you to do and all that stuff. So he says, tell the truth and follow what your conscience says, no matter what you think the consequences are going to be. So that was the talk, which I thought was great. And I think that those are great lessons for people. But I've read the Old Testament, and there are a lot of weird stories in there that I'm like, I'm not sure I can take anything good about that. Like murdering your wife and things like that.
So is it kind of like a metaphor for like modern day stuff?
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to get at.
Essentially. And then like during his like question and answer period, people were asking about like what gives you hope for the Western civilization, because there's so much stuff in flux right now in terms of gender ideologies and political situations in North America, even in like the UK and stuff. There's so much like changing in terms of what people believe and what people allow each other to believe and the divisiveness and all that. So he was just saying that like the stories in the Bible tell us that people are up against great odds, and it's the people who have courage, not naivety. So he's like, don't be naive and have hope for the future. Have courage and have hope for the future. Courage enough to stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other, because right now we're just assholes to each other in the world. Like social media hasn't made that any better. So yeah, it was like metaphorical, basically, all these Bible stories about how we can live now and in the future to make the world a better place and to,
Right.
really live
Question.
an authentic life. Yeah.
How much did it cost to go see him, and was it worth it?
It cost maybe like $70 a ticket.
Did you go with Joe?
I went with Jacob.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did Jacob enjoy it?
Jacob, he said he enjoyed it. He looked pretty bored during the lecture part, but he's also a very like quiet person in general. And then we had great conversations on the way home because he remembered like everything that he talked about. Because I was like, we were like going over what the 4 blessings were, or the 3 blessings and the 1 conscience thing. So we were remembering what that was when we were in the car and talking about it. And I asked him how he felt about it. So I think he liked it. He's at the age now where it's fun to be able to talk about things and hear what he's starting to believe about the world, because you think your kids are going to believe everything you believe about the world, but that's not the truth. Right. And so I think it was worth it. I love learning, and it was, for me, the most profound thing, which Jacob thinks is so silly, was learning that he grew up where I grew up and seeing the heights that he's risen to. Cause I'm just like, what? Like this person that grew up in this tiny ass little town in Northern Alberta that has like 1,000 people in it is like one of the world's like, most famous, like intellectual philosophers, like that has risen out of like post-COVID times. Like it's so crazy. And not everybody knows who Jordan Peterson is, just like not everybody knows who Sam Harris is, or like all these other people that, are sort of leading the world with what their beliefs are. But it's very cool. It was really cool to see that somebody that is from where I was from made it that far. So I liked it.
One of the famous things about Jordan Peterson is that he's on the carnivore diet, and he only eats beef, lean beef.
Really?
For breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah. You did
not
not know that
that
about him?
No, I did not know that about him, but I can say that the carnivore diet is very good for weight loss. Joe's been on it he's just doing it for a month because he wanted to lose some weight, but he lost 15 pounds, which is like 6.8 kilograms, you said in the text, in 1 week. Like 1 week.
That's
a lot of
wild.
that
took me all summer.
Yeah. A lot of that is water weight, because when you stop eating any kind of carbohydrates, you can make carbohydrates from proteins. Obviously, you make some of them from proteins in order to, store glycogen in your liver and all that stuff. But a lot of what you're losing is the glycogen storage in your muscles, in your like arms and legs and stuff. And for every gram of glycogen that you store 1 gram of water. So when your glycogen goes down, your water goes down. So a lot of what he lost is just water weight. And once he starts eating carbohydrates again, most of the water weight will come back. So he probably realistically lost half of that amount in body fat. So like 7 pounds of
That's
body
still
fat in a
good.
week,
Like,
but it's
if he
still
lost
really cool.
3 kilos of fat in a week, that's remarkable. And what is he eating? Is he just beef, chicken, and eggs?
He's
'Cause
eating
apparently you can eat eggs on the carnivore diet.
Yes. So he's eating beef, chicken, eggs, and some dairy, like cheese. No milk or anything. But yeah, so it's been interesting cooking for him because
And how is his bowel movements? Because I heard it
still
makes you.
pooping.
No, I heard it makes you,
Oh,
shit a
diarrhea?
lot.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. He's like he used to poop 3 times a day. Now I'm talking about your bowel habits on here, Joe, which he wouldn't come on the show. I was like, come on the
Why
show and
not?
talk about your carnivore. He's like, no, that's not my thing. I was like, Fred told you to come on. I'm talking about you
Well,
anyway, Joe.
I was quite looking forward to talking to Joe
I'm
about
talking about your bowel
his
habits.
weight loss.
I'm talking about your bowel habits on the carnivore diet. Do you want to share them?
No, it's all good.
You don't want to come on here and share? He won't do it. He's not coming. He's over there though.
Oh, hello. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, Fredo?
Yeah, good,
He won't.
thanks.
He won't. Anyway, he used to poop 3 times a day, but now he's down to 1 time a day. And like stool consistency has obviously changed a little bit. His are like firmer now, but I'm not eating the carnivore diet, but right now I'm eating meat, fruit, and cooked vegetables, and I'm still pooping fine. So
Yeah.
but that's my
Nice.
first thought. I was
Well,
like, "Are you gonna poop?" He feels better though.
I saw a very convincing YouTube video recently that was about the carnivore diet and all the things that it could cure. It looked like quite too good to be true, to be fair, and I'm very, very skeptical of it just because of the way the video was presented. But although I have to say it was also very convincing, I was like, "What? I might try that carnivore diet too." I spoke to Chris about it. She wasn't too keen, but I'd be really keen. I've been eating quite a lot of meat, and I don't know. I don't think I could do it forever because I do like other things in my diet.
Yeah.
I like to be varied, but I would love to see to have a because this one video I saw, it was like the elixir of life. The carnivore diet cures everything, and Jordan Peterson said that it cured him of like so many ailments. I think his daughter, is it Michaela Peterson? She had like arthritis and she was riddled with it. And then the carnivore diet, all of a sudden she's like hopping around, hop, skipping and jumping, eating, and that was, it was wild. So I'm again, cautiously skeptical, but I'm well up for trying it. I like beef, I don't, I think for me, beef, literally that's all he eats is beef, lunch, breakfast and dinner. But apparently the more you eat of the meat, because it's all protein, like you eat less because it fills you up. I don't know, but I'd definitely be open to trying it like short term to see the effects.
I think there's a Dr. Paul Saladino, that's a very prominent carnivore sort of proponent. He was carnivore for many years, and he talks a lot about like the safety and efficacy of it because he was on it. He had a lot of skin problems when he was on it. So I think for every diet out there, there's some people that it cures and some people that it harms. And he got like an irreversible electrolyte imbalance from it. So he's still very carnivore, but he eats fruit now. So he eats meat and fruit and animal organs because he thinks, well, he doesn't think, he knows that if you eat the carnivore diet and you don't actually eat organ meats that are really rich in vitamins, that you have to supplement. Just like if you're a vegan, you have to supplement with certain vitamins that you're not getting from all the plant foods. So being a carnivore without being an intentional carnivore is difficult, just like being a vegan without being an intentional there. I think they're both so annoying, Marco, on either side of the scale. I'm just like, carnivores and vegans, let's put them in a room and watch them fight it out because it would be pretty funny. But they're both just as annoying. If you say plants are poison, it's bullshit. If you say animals are the death of the world, It's bullshit.
Yeah, that's funny. I like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Joe's had a positive experience so far, then, yeah.
Yeah, a positive experience so far. Less bloating, feels great. No, like his portion sizes have drastically decreased, which is crazy because before he would eat like a giant steak plus like a potato and everything, but now that he's eating only meat, he can't eat that much in the like at
Oh,
supper
really?
time. So it's an interesting thing to witness, but he's definitely not going to stay on it forever because I just don't think it's
Is
a
it
sustainable diet.
expensive?
Not really, because your portion sizes are so small. So like he's eating maybe like 6 eggs for breakfast and then
Have you
like
seen
a
the
half,
price of eggs?
especially the eggs I buy. You should see the eggs I buy. I pay like $9 a dozen or something for the eggs I buy. So stupid.
It's like a meme. The price of eggs is like a meme now. But
Oh, it's so
yeah.
crazy.
It's
But
yeah,
yeah.
I can imagine it being like meat and eggs well, I don't know, no, eggs so much aren't here. I know in North America it's a pretty hot topic at the moment, the price of eggs. But but meat here is just very 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 expensive. That's why when I was a vegetarian, I remember like it was very very cheap to go to the supermarket. I wasn't like a strict vegetarian, but like I used to eat a lot less meat, but now I eat a lot more meat.
Yeah.
But if I ate only meat, I reckon it would cost a fortune. I'm up for trying it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, it's worth a try just to see, but unless you have an issue, like Joe needed to lose weight. And a lot of people have digestive issues, which is why they go on it, like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or some sort of autoimmune disease. And it's like basically just an elimination diet. They take out everything that is possibly harming them in terms of food insensitivities or food sensitivities. And then it just leaves meat essentially. And then they feel
Yeah.
good on it, so they don't ever go back. But oh my God, $14.50 a dozen in Manitoba? That's how much you pay for the eggs? James is saying that's crazy. That is nuts. So maybe Alberta's not nearly as bad. That's crazy. Can't believe
Well,
that.
the price of eggs. That's
Oh my God, that's so nuts.
So
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to dwell on this a little bit longer. So
Sure.
what does he eat for? So he eats 3 meals a day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
No, two meals a day.
Oh, he eats 2 meals a day.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for like the simplicity of it. Like I think that could be because intermittent fasting is another real good way of losing weight because it's just like you eat in this window and outside of that window you don't eat, you know? So it's like restricting you that way. The carnivore diet's very simple. If it's not meat, you don't eat it, right? So I think that's kind of a good way of like losing weight because you're like, oh well, I can't snack on any, donut,
Yeah.
Surrounded by donuts and biscuits. You're like, well, if it ain't meat, I ain't eating it. So
Essentially.
I think that's the simplicity works quite well. I think So yeah, and I think that's probably just works with calorie restriction as well because
It also,
you literally can't eat like 2,500 calories of meat a day. Or maybe
Probably
you
not.
could, but it would be hard.
You can eat a lot of fat though. So Joe's not counting calories at all. And some meals are very fatty. Like I was like, I don't know if you guys have like pork rinds, but you can buy like bags of pork rinds here that are like chips kind of. So you grind them up into a flour and you bread the chicken with it and stuff. And so like the chicken becomes super high fat. And then he was like eating like sauces with cream and cream cheese and like cheese. So it was probably like, but you're right, because he's only eating one meal realistically, or like 2 meals, but like the eggs might be eating like at most like 500 calories for lunch. And then for supper, he might be eating at most like 1,200 calories, even like a really fatty meal, maybe like 1,500 calories, but like he's topping out at 2,000 calories of fat and meat. Whereas if he was eating other things, like I said, the portion sizes were just really high because he loves pasta and stuff like that. So he would just eat a lot of it. So he's eating the cream sauce on the pasta and the chicken and all that stuff. And so you're just adding calories that don't make you as full. But yeah.
Greg says hundreds of people are saying that they have reversed type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, high blood pressure, RA, IBS, skin conditions, all from eating a carnivore diet. I'm not sure what RA is, but
I'm not sure what RA is either, but I have a neighbor that reversed all of that stuff. He doesn't have high cholesterol or anything.
But Greg says he's been on the carnivore diet for
Yeah.
a year and a half, so he's definitely a fan, you know. And I
He
get
is.
it. Like, I definitely think there's probably something to it, you know. I'm certainly open to it. I'm quite cynical about many things, but the carnivore diet I'm like quite open to. I don't know why, because I like meat, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that I think it's a very fad thing right now. It's like in, so we'll see. But I also think that it is one of the rheumatoid arthritis. I think it's
Thanks,
one of
James.
like carnivore diets or just eating meat in general is one of the things that like you can like in like third world countries, it's not possible to be a vegan. Like they couldn't possibly grow as much food as they need. One goat can feed a family of 5 with the milk and eventually the meat for months and months, and like chickens with the eggs and stuff. And yes, you have to feed those things, but if you had to grow the grain to feed the humans and the animals and all that stuff, the meat and the eggs are more nutrient dense, volume wise, calorie to calorie, than like the plant foods. So like people that live in places like that, they just couldn't be vegan. But I also think that in countries like where people don't have access to plant foods, then you get like, you're not going to get scurvy from eating meat because there is vitamin C in meat and stuff. But you need, like, I think you just need a balance. And I like plant food, so I would never be able to give up like fruit and certain vegetables and stuff. I do have to pay attention to how digestible the vegetables are. So raw vegetables really bother my stomach right now. So I have to cook them, but that just makes them more digestible and makes the nutrients higher in them generally. So yeah, I could never go full carnivore. Like I just would miss.
What about short term?
Yeah, I think maybe short term, maybe like a month I could do it, I think, because I definitely, the more meat and cheese and stuff I eat, the more I crave, which then makes it easier to eat it. And the more vegetables you eat, I think the more vegetables you crave. So yeah,
Interesting.
I think for a short term, it's an interesting diet to be on. And if it works for you long term, I've know plenty of people that are doing the carnivore diet long term. They've been doing it for a year, 2 years, and they're totally fine. And then other people like that Paul Saladino that I was telling you about got irreversible electrolyte imbalances that, you know, he had to then fix. So if
through
everybody
the carnivore diet,
no, he got it. He wrecked his electrolyte balance. So carnivore diet, if anybody really knows anything about like mineral balance in your body, and alkalinity and stuff, this is like sciencey stuff, but like your body is always a pH, a certain pH. And there are certain foods that when you digest them, they create acids. And there's certain foods that when you digest them, they create alkaline sort of products. And your body has to buffer acids in order to make it back to a neutral pH. And your body also has to have chemical reactions with things that are too basic in your body to make it come back to a neutral pH. So you use up minerals when you are digesting things that become acids so that your blood stays a certain pH. So if you're eating a lot of meat, then your body is buffering the acidic byproducts of meat, of like protein digestion, to keep your body a certain pH. And so you use up a lot of electrolytes, which is why almost anybody on the carnivore diet, they will tell you that they have to supplement with like electrolyte drinks or just eat a lot of salt. Some of them just eat a lot of salt, which isn't a bad thing. It's just you have to pay attention to it. And so some people who just naturally don't have a genetic predisposition to hold on to certain minerals or buffer acids as efficiently as other people, they'll use a lot of their minerals. And so then you can get an electrolyte imbalance that is pretty hard to reverse. So some people can do it just fine and some people can't. So you have to pay attention to that. The more meat I eat, I'm like measure my urine pH, because if your urine pH, yeah, I do. So in the morning, if your morning urine pH is,
that's such a Britney thing to do.
It's so me. Yeah. I'm very sciencey. So if your urine pH is between 6.5 and 7.5 in the morning, that generally means that you have a good level of alkalizing minerals in your body that is buffering acidic pHs. So if your urine is neutral, then you have enough of those minerals that they're coming out in your pee. Otherwise, you will hold on to all of the alkalizing minerals and you won't pee them out. So if your urine is neutral and less acidic, then you're good. And your body has got a good mineral balance. So I recommend anybody that's doing the carnivore diet Yep.
strips and you put them
Yep.
in the Wii.
Yep.
And
Yep.
how does it fluctuate? Do you ever have like, do you ever like, oh wow, like that's a bit too acidic?
Yeah, sometimes mine's like 6. Mine usually doesn't get lower than a 6, or higher than a 6. Oh, yeah, lower than a 6. Sorry, lower than a 6. It doesn't usually get lower than a 6 because low is acid and high is basic. But yeah, so if the strip is essentially green, you're good. It's like a light green, then you know that your urine is like a neutral pH. And if it's a little bit yellow, then it's a little bit acidic. And if it gets to be like orange, then you're really acidic. And if it starts to move into like the reds and stuff, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd feel it if it was in the reds. It would be burning. But as it was coming out, you'd be like, whoa! You'd be like weeing lemon juice.
Yeah. So most people's urine will never get that way. Your body is pretty good at buffering acids and making things neutral. But Greg, I just actually saw a thing on LMNT, or I don't know how you say it, but that electrolyte that's so popular. And they actually have a lawsuit going on right now because they have hidden maltodextrin in their natural flavoring. And the maltodextrin amounts in this electrolyte drink are humongous. So they were actually throwing people's blood sugar out of whack. So you might want to go look at that and see if they've like remedied the amount of maltodextrin that is in, because maltodextrin has like a oh my God, what's the thing with the blood sugar?
Glucose?
Glycemic index. It has a glycemic index higher than glucose. So glucose is like 100. It's even higher than that sometimes. So go check that out. I didn't really follow beyond the big news that this lawsuit was coming out. But go check that out because I'm not sure whether it's as good of a supplement as we all thought it was. Because I used to buy it too. So go check that out, Greg. I have to pee, so I might have to like sign off. I've had to pee for like 40 minutes.
How come neither of you have had to take a pee break yet? Well, I'm wiggling my bum.
Totally wiggling your bum for like ever.
I was waiting for you to talk about the bar commercials, but never mind.
Oh, well, we can, how would I talk about that next week after I do the self-tape if I get a call back? Yeah, I'm auditioning for like a commercial where I have to like go up to a bar and order a whiskey. And it pays a lot of money. So I'm like super hoping I get it. It's in Ontario, Toronto, Ontario. So
good luck with that. Before we go, shall I try a quick magic trick?
Yes.
All right, cool. So you are aware that of like most magic tricks involve cards, right? Mm-hmm. Like playing cards. You know what the suits are?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because some people don't, okay?
Yeah, I do.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions, but I want you to answer intuitively. Just don't think too much about it. Just like the first thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Pictures or faces?
Pictures.
Okay.
What?
Excellent. Great choice. Right. So now we have the picture cards. So now you've got the jacks, the queens, and the kings. But the jacks and the kings are men, and the queens are the women. So do you want to get rid of the men, or do you want to get rid of the women?
The men.
You okay? Right. We're going to get rid of the men, and now you've got 4 queens. That's all you've got left. We've whittled it down to 4 queens. What queen do you want?
Hearts.
Really? That is absolutely crazy. Do you know what? Look, I made a prediction before we started. And look, this is absolutely wild. But it says, you will choose the queen of
my
hearts.
God. That just gave me like goosebumps. What the fuck? I don't get it. How?
It's magic.
I don't know how you could possibly do that. We didn't even talk about it before. Like, how is this possible? I don't know how people do this. Unless you have every card in your pocket, maybe. But I'm like, how would you pick it?
I've got 52 outs. I've got 52
That's what
pockets.
I said. I was like, how would you just like immediately pick my card? That's so crazy. Oh my God.
You like that?
Yeah, I love that. That's what James said. He has 52 pieces of paper and he just magically picked the one that was my card. That's so crazy. You should do this like so much more often.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
I did. I have one of my friends that I went to last night to their baby shower. So I went to a gender reveal and I went to a baby shower the day after. And apparently my friend, which I never knew this, his girlfriend who's having the baby, she outed him for having a magic YouTube channel when he was a 16-year-old boy, and he won't tell me the name of it.
Oh.
He's Italian, so it's going to be in Italy. Like, it's going to be in Italian because he lived in
Yeah.
Italy when he was a kid. So now I'm like, Italian magic channels. I can't find it, but I thought that was hilarious. And Joe was like, you do magic like Fred? And he's like, who's Fred? And he's like, you've never watched Brittany's podcast? He's like, no, I've never watched her podcast. Well, that was so funny.
Especially at the end, like the amount of people that are watching at the end is obviously very, very low.
Yeah, that was really good. That was an impressive way to end. So good job.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Did you feel like it was forced at all? Like I forced the card on you at all? Is there something to do with like free will?
Nope.
Okay,
No, I
cool.
feel like I totally chose. Like, I can't see how you were just asking me the questions. So I'm not really sure how you could.
All right, so you
Worse,
picked
though.
a picture card, right?
Yeah.
But say if you were to pick another card, like say for example, a number card, like any number card, like what you could pick another one.
Sevens.
Okay, 7 of
Spades.
7 of spades.
Yeah.
And you believe in free will, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, if you pull another thing out that says 7 of spades, I'm gonna be like, how is it possible? I don't get it. What are you doing to me? Now I'm so
Okay.
confused.
No,
I just
look,
picked
look,
that
I've
all
got-
by
I've got
myself.
a pack of cards here, right? Look. I'm gonna look. Look, there's one card in here that's upside down. Look. One card. I put
It's
that in
not.
there before we even started. It would be
It
crazy
can't
if
be
it was
the
there,
7
right?
of spades. What the fuck? I don't get it. This is creeping me out. How?
And you felt that was a fair choice, yeah? You weren't.
I
wasn't
don't
forced
understand
or
what you're
anything?
doing to me. How are you manipulating? Now it's freaking me out. Somebody please tell me how he's manipulating me. I don't get
I'm
it.
just saying. I'm just saying.
You like
like,
that now this is really scary to me now because you're saying you think you have free will and you did it once and then you were just like, okay, now what if you were to pick a number card? And I picked out of like there's 1 to 10. There's you know what I mean? Like how could I possibly be manipulating
Well, it's more than 1 to 10 because like all right, I narrowed you down to a number, but there's 1 to 10 and there's four there's four
spades,
different
hearts,
suits.
clubs, diamonds. Like, yeah, I don't get it.
And
I
you
don't
felt
get
like
it.
that was definitely a free choice. There was
Yeah.
no influence.
There's no
But
influence.
there
I
was
can
a little
possibly.
bit,
I don't get it. No, I don't see how you could possibly be influencing me. Are you showing me something? I don't know. This is what I
But you
mean.
like
This is like God to me. This is why religion, I'm just like, no. This would be like somebody giving me a magic book. That's the Bible to me. I'm like, I don't want to know. I just want this to be like what it is, being like, this is amazing. And I don't know how I'm being manipulated. Please don't tell me.
I'm glad.
Oh my God. Okay, well, you're going to leave me very confused now. So
There you go. I'm really glad you enjoyed that. I'm glad it worked
I did.
as well, you know, because you could have picked any card, and I chose that card before we even started. So
that's crazy.
I
That
feel
even
like
if you
I've been
picked it right
subtly-
now, I don't see how it would have possibly have like, do you know what I mean? Even if you picked it like 2 seconds before I said it, I just don't know how it's possible that you can pick the card that I'm going to pick. But yeah.
Well, because I've been subtly influencing you the entire podcast.
Are you serious?
And then all of a sudden you're like, well, of course I'm going to pick the 7 of spades.
I don't see how though.
That feels right to me.
Oh, now I'm freaked out, but I have to pee. I probably peed my pants. I
too.
should write underneath the podcast when I post it whether I peed my pants or not, because I've been sitting here for 40 minutes having to pee. So I'll let
All
everybody
right,
know.
well, I'm really glad. I'm really glad you enjoyed that magic trick. That
I
was
did. We
brilliant.
should
I'm
do
so
that
glad
every
it went so
time.
well. Well,
I'm so
I
gullible.
did promise you a magic trick every week, right?
Yeah, we should try one at least every second week. That was fun.
All right, good. I think
All
your
right.
reaction was really good because the people in the chat might have thought that we set that up, but I think you really sold it.
No,
You're not my-
no, absolutely didn't set it up. I swear, it
You're not my
was
stooge.
entirely on the fly. Yeah, that was really cool. That was awesome.
Yay! I'm
Yay!
actually secretly thrilled because it went. It
It
like,
went
it worked.
exactly how it's supposed to. You're like, she's gullible. I'm gonna do it to Brittany at the end because I know that she's easily influenced.
Amazing. All right, cool.
Okay,
Right.
see you guys.
See you guys. See you later.
Bye.
See you next week. Goodbye.